Over the last couple of years of working on these houses, I've run across some interesting things. I thought in this video I'd show a few of them. I started to name this video "Don't Do This," thinking I would show people things not to do while you're working on a house. That wasn't until I did something that made the list. So now we're just considering this a light-hearted look at mistakes people make. In this first one, I had a door that just wouldn't stay shut. I thought all I would have to do would be move the strike plate or something. But on further inspection, I spotted the problem. Do you see it? Maybe this will help. The latch is installed backwards. I had a lot of door issues in this house. I got a kick out of this one because it looked like it had been trimmed with a chainsaw. On the surface, this one may not look like much. But if you look closely, you'll see that the screw that's used here is a panhead screw. That is, a screw with a round top on it. Now, by itself, this may not seem like much, but when all 6 of the screws, those on the door side and those on the jamb side, are this way, the door is not able to shut properly, as the screw heads will hit long before the hinge actually closes. Using the correct flathead screw allows the hinge to shut properly without putting undue pressure on the joint each time the door is shut. And this is the result of using the wrong kind of screws in the hinge. You can see in this picture all of the screws have pulled out of the door, and they've inserted mollies in an attempt to try to keep the door on the hinge. This door is now essentially unusable, and a new door had to be bought. Most of the things I run across just cause me to shake my head and say, what were you thinking when you did this? This is one of those ones that just makes me mad. It took a lot of work to make this right. What they did is they tried to fix a hairline crack in the drywall by filling it full of silicone putty. Rather than just putting a little silicone on the wall, they covered the wall with about 1.5 feet by 8 inches worth of silicone, which meant that someone, me, had to stand there and scrape and peel and rub until we got all the silicone off so we could patch the crack properly and then paint. This is one of those that just had me shaking my head wondering what they were thinking. This is a plywood deck that was part of a bathroom floor that I pulled out. It was one of 3 layers that came out of this bathroom. What had me scratching my head was why in the world would you use 10-penny nails, those are nails that are 3 inches long, to nail down through a subfloor that's only 1.5 inches thick. I've run across some pretty interesting things in terms of electrical wiring as well. This is not the first time I've run into this one. This is 14-gauge wire that has been soldered together, rather than using something like a wire nut to hold the wires together. If you look closely, you can see that all of the insulation is burned, and in fact, there's insulation melted into the solder. At first, I thought this was just insane. Who in their right mind would solder wires like this together? But when I looked into it further, it appears that the NEC, the National Electrical Code, actually allowed this to happen. This is one of my all-time favorites. If you look closely, the wire that runs from top to bottom in the middle of the screen has a section of the insulation stripped off. The wire that's in my hand, the one that's from the center of the screen over to the right side of the screen, has a single loop in it that's wrapped around that bare section of wire. This was simply taped together along with all the paper kindling left in the box. It's a wonder this house didn't burn to the ground. Usually I don't pay a whole lot of attention to trim work since I'm going to rip most of it down anyway. But for some reason these two struck me as funny. In this first one you can see that the trim on the door has been mounted backwards so that the thick edge is against the door and the thin edge is away from the door. Ordinarily you'd put it up the other direction. Of course when it's put up this way the hinge no longer fits against the trim, so drastic measures must be taken in order to get the hinge inside the trim. This is one of those cases where a little planning would have been helpful. You'll see that after the door has been trimmed, there's no space for the plate over the light switch. So with a little help from a saw, they cut the plate down. As late as the early 1960s, houses were plumbed with galvanized pipe. That is, steel pipe with a zinc coating on it to prevent corrosion. The problem is, over time, the zinc erodes and you're left with a steel pipe with water in it. These are a few examples of what the pipe looks like after 50 years of use. This is looking into the kitchen drain in one of the houses. I first spotted this and didn't have any idea what it was. It was dry and crumbly to the touch, and when I stuck a drywall saw in there to clean it out, I noticed that rust was coming out of the bottom of the pipe. This pipe had completely corroded through, and each time the sink was used, water would drain onto the floor. In this picture, you can see a galvanized drain pipe threaded into a cast iron cleanout. You can see a fair amount of corrosion at the joint. This pipe was actually no longer threaded into the cast iron, but was just sitting on top of it as the corrosion had eaten all of the threads away. This is the inside of that same pipe. Galvanized pipe wasn't relegated to drain pipe, it was also used for the water supply lines. A closer look shows that the water supply lines not only have the same corrosion, but also have a wonderful black slime inside them. In order to get clean water to come out, you had to let your water run for a little while. This isn't actually from a house that I bought, this is one I looked at. This is two pieces of copper pipe joined together with two shark bite fittings and a piece of PEX or plastic pipe in between. What I liked about this is the shark bites cost about $7.50 a piece, so you get about $16 worth of material when you could have done the same thing with about $1.50 worth of copper fittings. According to the next door neighbor of one of the houses I bought, the previous owner had been a professional remodeler and house flipper. These next two clips are examples of his work. I can't imagine he stayed in business very long. I'm going to pause the clip right here. This is the main bathroom in the house. As you can see, he's installed a nice quarter-round glass shower enclosure. What's not quite as evident is the fact that he covered more than half of the window with the shower enclosure. Okay, let's pause again. That green rectangle you see at the top of the picture is a piece of mold-resistant drywall. He's just got it laying there covering a hole in the wall. This next clip shows how he created a master suite. As we look around the room, it looks like he's created a large open space. However, in doing so, he removed a large section of load-bearing wall. I'm going to pause this clip again and just focus on this little spot on the wall. It doesn't look like much, but what you're seeing there is a little nub of wire that's been folded over and shoved back into the wall. There are two problems with this. First, the wire is still hot. Second, it was used to feed a large portion of the lighting in the basement. I guess this is what you do when you get rid of the wall the wire was hidden in. You can see the finish work is incredible. Nice, smooth, clean lines everywhere. Even the floor had the 2x4 left in it. There's the hole for the wire. And just so you know, I have my own moments of brilliance. I recently framed in two closet doors in the house that I was just working in. And I know that closet doors are supposed to have an 80-inch high opening. So I framed it 80 inches from the floor. The only problem with that is it's a finished opening, not a rough opening. So on the last day when we went to hang the closet doors, they didn't fit. So in order to get nice looking closet doors like this, all I had to do was pay one of these. Thanks for watching. Hope you had fun.